Thank you very much to the organizers and for the very nice introduction and for giving me the opportunity really today to present the EMA's perspective of lessons learned from accelerating in pediatric oncology drug development. This is my usual disclaimer. I would like to start with a short reflection on the main challenges in pediatric drug development in general, I would think, and challenges I believe very well known to all of us, really to sort of illustrate the need for coordination and collaboration, starting from the sort of conceptual question in pursuing development of a novel treatment. Where is the unmet medical need, for example? What is the subsequent best target population? And when, within the overall context of available evidence, do we start initiating a study in pediatric patients, really leading to the content of a trial design? What's the deciding on, is there a standard of care? What's the standard of care? If there are many, what's the best one to use? In what would we assume and consider to be the best study design for the question we want to answer, and then really finally, how to operationalize such development efforts within the context of all the different regulations there are. Really, again, looking at it and seeing all the challenges there are. Hopefully, all appreciating that we need to work together, and I mean all stakeholders involved in pediatric oncology drug development. From a regulatory perspective, I would think that we as regulators cannot and don't even want to decide on certain elements in isolation. Elements I have alluded to just now. Appreciating the importance of cooperation and collaboration globally across all stakeholders involved, I would now like to sort of highlight two examples which have been built to address the need for collaboration and provide a clear value, I think, to the overall objective of acceleration. And that is first, multi-stakeholder interactions within the pediatric oncology strategy forums, and second, the international regulatory coordination. Two sort of themes where I believe we have made some progress and are able to address some of the key challenges I've just mentioned. Strategy forums are, as we have heard, and you're aware, meetings organized by Accelerate, a multi-stakeholder platform, together with EMA and FDA participation, really with the objective to exchange views and around unmet medical needs, either on a disease type or a class of products, to work together towards accelerating drug development based on science in the interest of patients with cancer. This is a slide giving you an overview of the past and the future strategy forums. And thanks here to Andy Pearson, who provided me with this slide, really showing the sort of evolution of the strategy forums over the past years. The next one will be on MAP kinase inhibitors, end of May. The last one has been on MTKIs in sarcoma. Outcomes of all the forums are publications, but also, and I think that's much more important, concrete deliverables catalyzed through the discussions at the forums itself. And these are follow-up activities like development of platform trials in pediatric AML or BNHL, or follow-up meetings between academia and industry partners, really to further prioritize product developments across different companies. So acknowledging that regulated decision-making cannot and should not take place in isolation, we need to build on the scheme of shared responsibility doing this through multi-stakeholder engagement, such as the strategy forums, has, I think, really sort of proven to address some of the development challenges I mentioned at the beginning, and can really sort of support regulatory decision making. And here are sort of some of the experiences in that regard, that it is possible, showing that it is possible and necessary for academia and industry to collaborate early and to discuss priorities based on unmet medical needs, and that this is a sort of continuous exercise beyond the forum and beyond sort of only one discussion meeting, as a sort of a living prioritization exercise, something which has been implemented not only within the platform trials I've mentioned, but also was an outcome, for example, of the last strategy forum. And this sort of really ultimately leading to focused and sequential development efforts in that regard. And here, again, concluding that by working together as part of through multi-stakeholder engagements, as described in the pediatric oncology strategy forums organized by Accelerate, such outcomes and outcome conclusions can really support our decision making from a regulatory perspective. Coming to the next and the second point of international regulatory coordination. Why is this important? I think we all recognize that pediatric cancer drug development is a global endeavor, and that sponsors need to satisfy different requirements, regulatory requirements globally. And here, the implementation of the RACE Act, where I believe Dr. Riemann will give an update on later, has really sort of underpinned again the need for further strengthening of international collaboration in that regard. To do so, we use the pediatric cluster calls, a very well-established and efficient platform, meeting monthly, as you know, with participants from EMA, FDA, TGA in Australia, PMDA in Japan, and Health Canada, really to discuss products, but also general topics, such as methodological concepts, for example, and to make most use most use of this opportunity for oncology products. End of 2020. We called for transparency and simultaneous PIP and PSP submissions to EMA and FDA, because really only by knowing what the plans are, what the regulatory plans are, to fulfill the requirements of the other respective agency, allows us to identify a product for discussion at the cluster call. Otherwise, it is just second guessing. As a next step, in March last year, we published a generic common commentary for pediatric oncology, because for developers and sponsors, knowing upfront when developing your pediatric investigation plan or your PSP, knowing upfront what the key issues are, we as regulators commonly ask, that allows you to sort of put these issues already in your initial application, and allows and facilitates early focus discussions and coordination then of global development plans between the regulators here. And the differences in regulation, I think that's an important part here, are not considered a hurdle and can be overcome. In addition, EMA participates as observers to FDA type F meetings, and vice versa. FDA, under the same confidentiality agreement under which the cluster calls take place, FDA is able to participate as observers to PIP clarification TCs, and both has happened last year. So to conclude, despite the different regulatory processes and timelines, there is an opportunity for early coordinated discussions between agencies using the cluster calls, and that can really assure timely initiation of early phase studies and a coordinated approach to later phase developments. Something we have seen being taken up really very positively last year. Before handing over to the next speaker, to finally summarize from our perspective the lessons learned on what is key to overcome the challenges for accelerating or to better accelerate global pediatric oncology programs. Early academia and multi-company engagement, followed by early involvement of regulators, is an important learning. Multi-stakeholder discussions should be used and something really taken up because we know. And we have seen that this can support identification of unmet medical needs and priorities, subsequently supporting regulated decision making. Lastly, transparency by industry to regulators on what their pediatric plans are beyond Europe is really key and important for us to learn, and subsequent, simultaneous submissions of mandated development plans to Europe and the US really allow early and coordinated discussions between agencies at the monthly cluster calls, and therewith really facilitate concretely coordinated discussions and a coordinated approach towards global development efforts. And with that, thank you very much also to my colleagues from the EMA, but also the FDA, and I'm happy to take any questions later. Thank you.